Hello, everybody, and welcome to Smiling Souls. This is Stephanie and Wendy, and
Oh,
we have our friend Lisa with us today. So,
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
yay! Wendy, I'm going to let you introduce Lisa. Let us get to know her a little bit.
okay, awesome. Oh my gosh. Well, it is my honor to introduce to you Lisa Condon from Lisa Condon Enterprises, fancy pantsy. So, for decades, Lisa has cultivated her leadership and inclination to help others succeed by partnering with individuals and businesses for strategic solutions and inspirational development. A business coach, thought partner, and life strategist, Lisa is a certified Six Sigma black belt. Oh my gosh. Scrum master, have to ask you about that. Certified Scrum product owner. Am I saying Scrum right, by the
You
way?
are, I know
Okay.
it sounds like it shouldn't be right, but it's right.
Okay, good. And PMP. Lisa is an international best-selling author and award-winning business strategist. Her most recent book, Stepping into Gratitude, became an international bestseller in 2023. Lisa uses her combination of theories and industry practices to guide business owners and executives on building out a sustainable strategic plan aligned with their core value system. A passionate advocate, Lisa sits on a number of boards and committees, including Brajora, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, Foundation, Santa's Letters, Polka Dot Powerhouse, and Cardinal Opportunities. She is the international president of Delta Phi Epsilon and a legacy leader for Polka Dot Powerhouse. Personally, Lisa is an adventurer of heart and free spirit. You will find her traveling the world with her husband, Nate, or sitting by a fire watching the stars. She's a proud fur baby mom to Jack, Simon, and Dexter. So welcome, Lisa.
Thanks, Wendy and Stephanie. I need to shorten that bio because I'm sitting here and so thank you for reading that. I appreciate all.
Of course. I have questions. What's a Scrum Master? Tell us about this. What is this?
Yeah, so Scrum and Six Sigma and PMP, they're all kind of in the same realm. So it's all about being process driven and project management. So within the project management world, you have agile and you have waterfall of how you do project management. Scrum is the agility piece of it, and waterfall is the PMP piece of it.
Okay. Got it. That makes total sense. I was like, I have to know what this is. Beautiful. And so I'm going to pass it back, I think, to Stephanie. Um,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Go,
So
girl.
obviously you can tell that we have met Lisa through Polka Dot Powerhouse. That is all of our connections. But she is just a awesome human and we want to dig into that. So if you can share with us a little bit about who you are, your journey, like your version of your story instead of like the bio.
Yeah, so it's so interesting to listen to a bio, I think for any of us, right? Because it's select pieces of who you are and your puzzle. So professionally, I've been in business 17 years as of May, which is crazy to me. I've defied a lot of odds.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really exciting. And I love what I do. Like, I love helping people and businesses. And I like to say my superpower is I see the potential in them that they don't see in themselves, and then I
Right.
help them get there. That to me is really important. But that ties into who I am at heart, which truly is, I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. At 4 or 5 years old, I told my family, once I turned 17, I'm leaving. See ya. And I did. And I went and just as an adult did the things that I wanted to do that brought me a lot of joy, including working. I'm a workaholic. I enjoy it. But with all of that, I always followed my true instincts and my true desire. And when things didn't feel right, I didn't know at the time that was values work and all of that. But when it didn't feel right, I would pivot. And I didn't necessarily care what anybody thought about that. And so now I'm able to bring that passion and love of life mixed with the wisdom of business and be able to now give that back to the world. Yeah, so that's a little bit more about me in my words.
That's awesome. Um, and so our podcast tends to talk about, the Gen X generation, that is a bit of a sandwich generation, helping be a caretaker of some sort, while balancing all these things. How or what would you like to speak about concerning, like, towards that audience? Like, we
Yeah.
could talk about values, we could talk about mindset. What's something that's popping up for you that you think you could share to our audience?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. So I'm definitely in that sandwich generation, and I've actually done caregiving both upward and downward, right? Like I've done
Mhm.
it both ways. So, what comes up with me for caregiving from how do you care upward? And
Mhm.
most of the time that's parents or grandparents. Usually, aunts,
Yeah.
uncles might fall into that too. But I cared for both of my parents, and both of my parents have since passed. Funny enough, I was just talking about this last night. My
Mhm.
dad passed away in 2013 and my mom in '07. It's been a long time. And
Right.
yet it feels like it was yesterday. And the differences between the two of them of how they both from symptom to death were 5 weeks, each of them. So very, very
Wow.
quickly. However, those 5 weeks looked so different because of how they were set up and what I knew and what my brother knew about what their desires were and what they wanted. My dad, it was very, and he was the second to pass, but everything was in the bottom left-hand drawer. And we knew, like, here, everything was in order. And he had talked to us about it. My mom, on the other hand, had nothing in order
Mhm.
and really we weren't set up for success, And I think when you think about caretaking, part of that is being able to have the tough conversations and help those transition with dignity. And part of that dignity is really understanding them, their core values, what's important to them. And
Mhm.
what's important to you at the end of the day doesn't matter. It's actually what's really important to them. How you do it and the integrity in which you do it, that's the piece that I think plays for us as caretakers. But there's that balance. But that's upward because I
Mhm.
also think the parent thing, there's a whole other umbrella to that, right? And
Oh, yeah.
because as daughters or sons, but yeah, I'll speak to the daughter piece, there's a lot of stuff that comes with when your parents are still here that you don't want to disappoint. You don't, no matter what your relationship is, it's just all subliminal. And so you want to do all the things right and you want it to be perfect. And we're human, it's not going to be perfect. So, but I also think with caregiving, when I think downward caregiving, right? So children, I don't have kids.
Mhm.
However, I am a really awesome godmother.
Mhm.
And, that is my godchildren are like my heart running around on this earth, truly.
Mhm.
And when your goddaughter sends you a text at 6 o'clock in the morning and says that she's scared and she's in the hospital and she just found a lump, guess what? You get your butt out of bed and you go and get her. And
Mhm.
and so I think there's so many variations of caretaking and none of them are wrong.
Yeah.
And to me that is the biggest aha moment as from my gosh, I mean, I started caretaking essentially in my 20s and
Mhm.
it doesn't I don't know if you have a caretaker's heart that it ever really stops.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just deeper and what you do is more it envelops your life more than others. It just kind of depends on what's going on. So evidently I have a lot to say about this topic, so I will
You
stop
do.
there.
Love it. Oh,
And
no.
let you
Keep
please
going.
ask things.
Keep going. You have something to say, Stephanie. I can tell.
I can too.
So, how would you say that your like values work that you do of
Yeah.
aligning your values
Mhm.
can relate to this? Because, obviously you can use it in the personal or the professional realm. So I'm just curious, like some advice or ways for people to dig into their values. First
Mhm.
off, introduce what it all means, maybe, and then,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So values work. Whew, values work is life changing. So I think oftentimes a lot of people believe that they know what their core values are,
Mm.
and it's because of what they prioritize. What you prioritize is not necessarily your core values. And I would argue to say that more than often, it's just not. So there are different ways to figure out what your core values are. My preference are values cards. I did those during a leadership program back when I was in my 20s. And when I say it was life changing for me, I came out of that, and I'm not even joking, changed a job, and I was in a really good job. Changed my job, got divorced,
Yeah.
moved, moved out of state, like kind of the big four. I mean, it was just like, and now it didn't happen overnight,
Sure.
but as soon as my eyes were open, you couldn't unsee.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I actually ended up creating my own values cards, and I use those with people and clients, and I love them because it's a tangible tool that people can hold, and there's an exercise that you can actually work through, and you can have somebody guide you through it. And once you know what those core values are, and again, I'm a process person, so I'm really into metrics and all of that, you can then align those values with your calendar, where you're spending your time. And you can say, hey, of my waking hours, I'm spending 5% of my time on the things that are actually my guiding principles. And if that's your starting point, then you can figure out ways to move that dial so that all of a sudden it's 10%, 15% of your time. And if we're all living in our core values and what we truly hold as our guiding principles that bring us joy and bring us gratitude, think about what this world could look like, or your family, or your community. It's a much different lens.
Right.
So, and Stephanie, to your point, I think you can do that in life and in business. And
Mhm.
we are one person that brings our whole self to whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that, and you have to do the work. People, and I will say this anytime anybody asks me about it. Until you've done the actual work, you don't know your core values.
Right.
Again, you might think that you do, and you possibly could be right, maybe. Um, but you got to do the work. And then you can say for sure that you know what they are. Because once you know what your core values are, in actuality, your top two core values typically do not change in your lifetime. So they might change, they might go from the first one to the second one, or the second to the first, unless some major change has happened in your life. And if a major change has happened, maybe something will shift, but it's not typical. Um, so then, how do you use that in caregiving?
Right.
Funny enough, it never occurred to me to use it in caregiving until one of our polka dot sisters, who actually lives here in Delaware, her mother and father were both aging, and she was a caregiver. And she really wanted to know how to do things right to take care of them. And she used my values cards to do it. And she called me and she said, I have to tell you about this. And I'm getting goosebumps because it was, and this is why they're so powerful, because you can use them for so many different things I've never even thought of. And she said what she did was, it was a way to have a conversation with her parents without it being really emotional, without them wanting to take care of her. And it just opened it up. And it actually changed how they wrote up the plan of caregiving, of how they wanted to approach their transitions, and support that they needed, who they ended up bringing in to even help. When you think about your transitional board of directors, doctors,
Mhm.
attorneys, all of that, um, it changed that. And so, this woman is a birth doula. They ended up wanting to bring in a death doula. So there was a
Mhm.
lot of that going on, but it all started with the value card conversation. And so subsequent, her mother has since passed away, but she passed away after she was able, every morning after these values card sessions, they would watch the sunrise together every single morning. And it's because there were some things that came up in that conversation about quality time and nature and adventure, that were really important to her. And that I don't know that that would have come out had they not had that conversation. So it's a tool. And I think just like anything else, when you think about caregiving, communication and conversation are key, are absolutely critical, because then there's no, am I doing something right? Am I doing something wrong? How are they feeling? Because at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all going to go through something in our lifetime, and we'll get to the point of transition. Sometimes it's a long road, sometimes it's a short road, but we'll all be there. And the more that we can have those tough conversations and use the tools at our disposal, um, the more comfortable it will be, and the more joyful the time together will be.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Wow.
definitely.
That is beautiful. I love how those values cards just really give your client that clarity on who they are, what they value, and then to take that a step further and to have that conversation. Because those are not easy, but this makes it easy. And then you can really understand what your parent wants, how that's going to match up with your values, and then like the process of transition with a parent is so much easier and more joyful. That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I wish I had done it with my dad. Um, and my dad's transition, I even had the doctor who was my random total side note. So my dad ended up in hospice on Thanksgiving morning, and the doctor working that weekend ended up being a doctor that I had when I was 6 or 7 years old, Dr. Playfoot. And I
Oh,
was like, this is
seriously.
crazy. But he pulled me aside, as as my dad was quickly going downhill, and he actually said to me, "Have you ever thought about being in this business?" Because of how I was helping my dad transition.
Right.
And it was such a compliment to me, but I knew my dad and I were very, very close. However, I don't know, and I still don't know what his core values are, and now he's gone, so I can't ask him. But but I have all of his journals. We've had so many conversations, but that one, I didn't, I don't know what there's always the wishes, and I regret nothing, but
Right.
he had wanted to come to the beach one last time before he passed away and not go into hot, like those types of things. You look at that and go, wow, here, and the tool, I had not created these cards yet. I had used other people's. Um, so it never occurred to me to do it. But man, I look at what Katie was able to do, and I'm like, that's beautiful. That's magic right there. That's magic.
That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about, there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. And that's a beautiful place to be, right? And so I'm curious about something with your journey. You said at one point, you were caregiving your mom and your dad, but then your mother-in-law, like I had to step away. Would you care to share about that?
So funny enough, I didn't say anything about my mother-in-law. Um,
Well, I think she maybe is reading the notes from.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, so I didn't say it. So I must have written
Oh
that.
no, you wrote it. You wrote it. I'm like, I thought I
No,
read
that's
that.
okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Lisa. Yeah.
I was like, Wendy, you're in my
Wendy's
head.
got some
How did
intuitive
that
thoughts.
happen?
I mean, I wish I could take credit for that, but no.
Yeah. So, and this goes back to not every journey is the same. And not
Yeah.
every journey is the same because not every relationship is the same, right?
Right.
And so my husband is an only child, and his twin died in the womb. So, but on this earth, he's an only child, and he was raised by a single mom. And so, um, and I love my mother-in-law, and
Right.
at the same time,
Mhm.
um, I am not her daughter, and
Right.
that is made very apparent, right? And again, not bad or good, just
Right.
is. And
Mhm.
so um she's had some struggles over the course of time, and most recently there were some health struggles that were happening. And what's interesting is that if I and she lives in a different state, and if I were to have gone there, it would have caused more stress.
Mhm.
However, how I could support her and how I could take care of her is by, number one, supporting my husband, but also having been through what I went through, being able to say, I think you need to consider this, you
Right.
know? And
Mhm.
what's funny is, and maybe she'll know after if she listens to this podcast, but and if she doesn't, she'll probably never know, where him going there to take care of her and making sure that certain things were in order, and she's still with us, but that wasn't necessarily his doing. That was really my doing by
Mhm.
conversations we had and making
Mhm.
sure that everything would be fine here and in order here, so
Right.
that it freed him up to not have to worry about anything, so he could go and focus on what was important, which was making sure she got home from the hospital, making sure that she was safe in her environment at home. And
Right.
um because she had had some surgical work done, so that her house was in an orderly fashion, so she didn't have to worry about going up and downstairs, that type of stuff. So so I feel like caregiving can be a direct or indirect thing. And again, it's all dependent upon the situation and how you want to be involved.
Mhm.
And was there a part of me that wanted to go? 100%, absolutely. But I'm also, because I've been through what I've been through, I could take that knowledge and say, do I go, and who's that benefiting if I go? Because it wouldn't benefit her, it would stress her out. It wouldn't benefit me because I would want to take over because I have some of the knowledge, and that wouldn't go well. So, I had to really think about it and step aside. So yeah, and I would choose that same route again,
Mhm.
and hopefully we don't have to go down that road as we did with her with the surgery, but there will come a time
Yep.
when we get to the point of transition, and potentially then a different choice might be made. Um, but you have to really be honest with yourself
Right.
and say, am I going to cause more harm than good? Maybe.
Yeah, that's okay. So I have a question from this for because I think we're going to have people listening and watching that might be in that space of something just happened to my mom, my dad, whatever, and they're trying to figure out what to do.
Hmm.
What's the best thing? Should I go? Should I stay? How should I? And they've got all this stuff happening. So when someone is in that place, Lisa, what would you encourage them, invite them to do first before they take any kind of action?
Oh boy. So you have to take the intentional pause.
Right.
You have to take a beat and
Yeah.
really take stock of what's happening in your life, what is the situation, and what will you be able to do if you are there in person. I think those are the things. Um, if you're a list maker, like write it down.
Mhm.
If you have a partner, you have to have a conversation with them. Your own house has to be in order before you can be or do anything for anybody else. And that's just in life. So, you add the complexity of a challenging situation, whether it be illness, an accident, whatever it might be, um, you're not prepared necessarily for that. And if you're not prepared, then you got to get prepared. And what does that look like? Once you know what internally what that looks like and you've done that work, and that doesn't need to be days and days. I mean, that can be a fairly quick process. Then you need to have the conversation with the individual, parent, sibling, whatever. Oh, siblings is a whole other thing. But parent, and have the conversation and say, this is what I'm thinking.
Right.
This is how I can be of benefit. What do you think? And then you need to let them process it, because again, you've already had the opportunity to process it. So now you have to let them process it and then come back together. And again, this doesn't have to take days and days. It could, but it could take a couple of hours for you to figure out what you need to do, talk to them, and then let them process it for a couple of hours and then come back together. Because especially with a parent, they're automatically going to go to, well, this is my child. My child shouldn't be taking care of me. I don't want to be a burden. All of those misnomers. And then you can help them put that aside when you come back together. If there's a sibling, you also have to take stock of what's your relationship with the sibling. What is the sibling's relationship with the parent? Should you be splitting duties? All of that comes into play, which can be challenging, right? But you've got to do what feels good for you, as well as, again, where can you bring value? And if you are really, like, I'm actually really, really good at death. Like, amazing. I am really good at helping people transition. I don't know why, but I'm really good at it. My brother and I have a pretty tumultuous relationship, but we do death very, very well together.
I
And
remember you said that when we talked. I was like, wow, that's really powerful and interesting.
Isn't it? It is. It's all those things.
Yeah.
We can't do anything else well together,
But that.
and
That's an important one and a hard one.
it is, and it really is. And what a way to really honor our parents and help them. Like, it just I think it also allowed them to not have any concerns about maybe how we would be together, right? So they were calm and content in that space. Yeah. So I don't know where I was with that. So there you go. I hope I answered your question, Wendy.
Welcome to our world. Stephanie and I do this all the time. Like, what was I talking about? Where did I go? It's more me than her, just being honest. What would you say to someone that is going to take a beat, think about what they want, and then think about, having that conversation, but they're so anxious? What would you invite them to do to get that nervousness down so they can be in that space of really tapping into their intuition, their heart, what they want?
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple of things.
Yeah.
Before any hard thing, conversation, getting on a stage, whatever it might be, I truly believe in grounding yourself. And usually for me, that's through breath work. And I have a very quick, like, I call it hands over heart, right hand over your heart, left hand over your right hand, close your eyes, 3 very deep breaths. And your heart rate calms down, your voice actually deepens, and it just sets you in the right energetic space. Now, there's other ways to do grounding, bare feet out in the grass, in the sand, but find a way to ground yourself. It's really, really important, and you do it right before you have the tough conversation. The other thing is, I'm a big proponent of have your bullet points of what you want to make sure you're saying.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And it doesn't need to be verbatim. Like, don't write yourself a speech, but no, hey, these are the 3, 5 points, and don't make it 50 points. Make it easy on yourself.
Right.
But
Just
3 to 5
small.
points. Yeah. These are the things I want to make sure they hear me say. And so I think that's important. Um, test it out. If you've got a close friend or a spouse or
Mhm.
somebody that's going to give you true and honest feedback,
Right.
talk to them about what you want to do before you have the conversation and get their opinion. Make sure it's somebody that knows your heart and that
Mhm.
understands the relationship that you
Mhm.
have,
Mhm.
and that can also give it to you straight. Um,
Mhm.
because if they're not going to, then it's a waste of time to have that conversation. Don't, this is not the person that you want to have say, "Oh my gosh, you look fabulous," and every single thing you put on. That's not the person you're
Yeah,
talking
that's
to.
not your person.
Mm-mm.
Mhm.
So I think those three things. And I would also say there's also remembering that your parent or whomever it is that you need to have this
Mm.
conversation with, they're human, which means they're
Yeah.
going through their own emotions. And
Yeah.
this conversation will not be easy for them either. And they're
Yeah.
going to be triggered by things you talk about, and it's not about you. It's
Mm.
actually about
Mm.
their journey and their fear
Mhm.
and their concerns
Right.
and everything that they're going through that you don't
Yeah.
quite understand.
Oh, that's okay. What stood out for me there is it's not about you. It's not about you.
Mhm.
That gives such a um almost a okay, it's not about me. Just remembering that you're not as hard on yourself. Mm, girl,
Mm.
wow. Stephanie, I have been peppering Lisa with questions, and so I want to make sure that if you have questions,
Well, I'm gonna pop in there,
I
but
know you will.
you had a good idea earlier that you shared with me. So your question that you were gonna ask?
Who, me?
You
Oh, what was the question I was gonna crap? I can't remember.
squirrel. The
It happens
universe.
all the time.
Lisa's in her, I believe her intro or something talked about like her connection with the universe, and we
Oh,
love to talk about all these things and get a little woo and whatnot. So I'm gonna let you take it over now that you know your question, if you do.
oh, good Lord, the brain fog that comes with 50 plus, right? It's so fun.
Mm. Mm.
So yes, the universe. How do you how can you help someone our listeners, our viewers tap into the power of the universe and the divine?
And
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 because I what stuff?
and what is like your personal practice? Like obviously they don't have to do what you do, but
Yeah, but it's
your
helpful to
personal
know.
practice and maybe why
Oh
why
boy.
you tap. I know that's a big question,
I'm
but
like, you
Yeah,
asked this one toward the end, huh? Okay.
oh
All right.
yeah.
we saved it for
We're
last.
fun.
Oh boy. So, okay, I need to preface this with
Mm,
um, this is something I actually struggled with for a really, really long time
really?
because I've actually been an intuitive my entire life.
Uh,
Yet I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where
yeah.
it's basically Salem, like burn me at the stake, right? And so it was. I mean, just a few years ago, I had to come out to my best friend that, I wasn't intuitive and I practiced things maybe that she didn't practice. Like so this has been a real journey for me. Um, so, but I also believe that universe, spirit, an omnipotent being, for me, it's all kind of one and the same because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, we are all part of something much larger than ourselves and we're all very connected. So that's my belief. And I tap into that. I have a morning routine that I do every single day. And I have an oracle card pull. I have my gratitude practice that I do every morning. I have a little bit of a meditation, but it's all about how I connect back. Oh. Isn't that interesting? We talk about this and Wendy disappears. See, the universe. um,
She'll be back.
she'll be back, exactly. But that's but I think that if you know that what you do has impact
Mhm.
on a greater scale, it makes your choices and the opportunities that you see and step into have different meaning than it just being about yourself. Because
Mhm.
every single thing that I do is not about me. And I actually believe that deeply. I think that it actually impacts the world. It's why my purpose in life is spreading seeds of gratitude. That's
Right.
my purpose.
Mhm.
So, um, but not everybody believes that, right? And not every, and there are a lot of people who really base everything they do in their practiced religion, which is,
Mhm.
again, completely whatever trajectory you have and whatever your beliefs are. Again, none of them are wrong, but it's how do you connect and fit in with that space, whatever that looks like, and then how do you use it for the greater good? That to me is the conduit because it doesn't just stop at your connection to your religion or your belief. It actually goes beyond that.
100%. Yeah, I love that. Is my voice working?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. My yellow box didn't come around my head, so I got confused. The
See,
Zoom.
I'm serious. You start talking about the universe with me, and I'm not even joking. I'm very electric, like
Mhm.
energetically, and things just start happening. Like my
Yeah.
light just turned on and I didn't turn it on. Like this is
Yes.
the stuff that
Yep.
happens.
Yep. Exactly. No, I get it. That is great. I love that. And I share very similar ideas of, you know, I since I was a child, I always was just like all the religions are basically the same, like as far as, it's a faith in something that teaches us morals and connects us with something greater than ourselves. Like that's why they exist, right? Um and and however we tap into that in our own unique way is what matters. Yeah, and like even honestly growing up, my mom kind of instilled in us to kind of take whatever values we learned but embrace and make it our own thing,
Mhm.
not just, whatever they say.
Which I love that. And how beautiful that your mother encouraged that because that
Mhm.
where I grew up, that definitely was not the case. It was with my own mother, thank
Yep.
goodness, but
Mhm.
not a lot of my friends. And,
Right.
so I'm glad that you had that experience and that
Yeah.
you're able to then share that.
Mhm. Oh, now I have to do the thing. Hold on. Hey, Wendy, welcome back.
Oh my gosh, what's the universe trying to tell us there?
So,
Just went.
Wendy, I said the same thing, but then I also said, you start asking questions like that of me, and it's like my light turned on. You laughed. I mean, but this is what happens when you start talking about energetic, intuitive work with me. So,
So this is why we did it last.
I just didn't know that's
there
why
we
we were
go.
doing
There
it
we go. I
last.
love it.
Yep, yep. No. So real fast, I want to do some rapid fire questions with you. They're just silly, kind of get to know you,
Love it.
just answer with the best question answer for yourself. So, if you could transform to any animal in the world, what would it be?
A, a lion.
A
Okay.
lion. What were you afraid of as a kid?
I'm still afraid of it. Clowns and spiders.
Nice.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh, favorite day of the week?
Sundays.
Sunday. Okay. Do you like giving or getting presents?
Oh, equal. Both.
Mm-hmm.
Love both. Yes.
Yeah. What was your favorite TV show as a kid?
I didn't have a TV as
I
a
was
kid.
gonna say you grew up in Lancaster, so you probably didn't.
Yeah.
Um, favorite weird smell?
Favorite weird smell? Is that what you
Yeah.
said?
Yep.
Oh, weird smells. Uh, Gah. It's not weird, but my favorite smell is my husband. Like he has he's got Nate smell, and it's my favorite smell. So I'm gonna say that's weird because, but it's funny, I haven't had smell for almost 2 years because of COVID. So I'm just getting it back.
Oh, I was gonna say I could help you with that, but okay. Too
No.
late now. It's coming back finally. Good for you.
Yes.
Um, who is your hero?
Well, it's twofold. My grandmother, my gram.
Mhm.
Oh, going back to smell, favorite weird smell books, old
Books.
musty books.
Nice.
Yeah, old musty books. My grandmother, and Madonna.
Very cool.
Yes.
Would you rather have regrets about action or inaction?
I don't have regrets.
Groovy. And how do you want loved ones to remember you?
I want them to remember my heart.
Nice. And what was your mom right about?
What was my mom?
Right about.
Oh God, everything, I feel like.
That's an awesome answer.
Right?
So the funny thing is when you said that you like the smell of your husband, my husband he used to do a lot of rock climbing and ice climbing and things like that. And when he would come home with all his sweaty, gross gear, the cat would like roll all over and like rub her face on his ice pick. And our present cat does that with his bike gear. Like once he comes home and he's all sweaty and gross, and we just laugh hysterically. We're like, they just love your stink. So I get it, and that's kind of why I giggled. But I get it, like the normal smell too. It's a thing.
Remember what I said, what animal I would be. I'm just a big cat.
You
So
are.
So
Yeah.
are you saying that you rub your face in your husband's clothes and you roll around in them? I mean, no judgment. You don't have to say. Just
Hey,
curious.
I'm just saying, like, maybe.
Maybe. None of your
happens.
beeswax.
Uh,
Well, thank you so much for being our guest today. This was a fantastic conversation. And if anyone wants to get a hold of you, I mean, obviously we'll put things in the show notes, but do you
Yep.
have any thing you want to share of
Oh,
ways
yeah.
people can connect with you?
Sure. And I love it when people connect with me. So the
Mhm.
easiest way is email. I'm
Mhm.
an email queen. I love email. So Lisa@lisacondon.com. Super duper
Sweet.
easy is my email address. But and make sure that you put in that you listen to this podcast because that will give us a starting point of a conversation. And
Mhm.
so, but I welcome anybody to reach out for any reason and
Yeah.
have a conversation. It's all about connecting and ultimately changing the world together. So,
I love it. Thank you so
Beautiful.
much for being our
Thank you
guest
so
today.
much, Lisa.
oh my gosh, thank you both. I was really excited for this conversation. So, thank you for having me as your guest.
Of course. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Okay. See ya.
See ya.